Yeah, one of my favorites is actually Ritual Caster, because Ritual Caster means that you only know specific spells, and it's just a thing you can add on to any class. But if you're a Ritual Caster, any ritual spells you know, which is the whole thing with the spell casting I won't get into, you can spend 10 minutes to cast a spell, which means you can't use it in combat, but outside of magic, if you want to cast a spell that's going to let you, identify a magic item, you can do that.
So I've got a question here that I'm interested in knowing the answer to. What is your guys' process for creating a character?
I do multiple different things. One where if I'm just trying to create a character really fast, or if I want a concept I want, I'll just go like, alright, what race do I think is cool? And that could change like immediately on a whim. Mm-hmm. And I'll just go into Google Images, I'll look up images of characters of that race or like class or whatever the hell, and I'll be like, this thing looks cool, I'll use this as a basis for what I want this character to be. I also think of like a cool concept of like what I could roleplay. One that I made up while at work recently that I really like is like, I want to be somebody that lived in the Feywild for all their life, and like they don't know anything about the material plane except what they've read in books that they've gotten from the material plane, which are all just like fairy tales and stuff. So they think that like dragons kidnapping princesses and towers happens like on the regular, and like they just go into the world with that knowledge and get surprised by everything that's different.
Okay.
And I'd make that like a character, or I'd just find some cool like ability and base a character off of that. Like a good one would be like how you could get a talking sword, a magic talking sword for a warlock that tells you to kill everyone you love and you'll get more power.
Yeah.
Or stuff like that.
Chris, what about you?
Usually, well, to be honest, I don't really have like a padded down, method. I haven't really played enough to really have that set. But what I've done with the most recent character I've been building for Curse of Strahd, I started with, I wanted to be a Dampier, so that was a starting point, and I went, okay, well, what can I do with that would be narratively interesting? And what I thought up was, well, what if he hates his nature, and he's, sort of monster hunter type thing, which would be why he would be interested in, going to fight Strahd in that. Usually what I do is I start with the class, like what kind of role I want to play. Like if I want to be a spellcaster or whatever. But I haven't really played all that many classes yet.
Okay.
How do you do it?
Well, either, like with seemingly everybody, it comes from picking either a race or a class that I initially am like, that's what I want to play. And then from there, I will build a personality around that person. Like, for the Curse of Strahd campaign, I'm still in this process of doing this, but I think of like, okay, I also wish like to play a Dampier. What kind of personality do I want to portray as a Dampier? Like, how do I want that character to act? And then from there, I'll look at the class list and see, okay, what fits the most? What would this personality logically do? Or the other method that I usually go to, which is kind of been... This is more I do on my own time, like whenever I'm just casually coming up with characters, is I will listen to music and I will go on Pinterest and I will just start looking at images of anything and everything. It doesn't even have to be characters. It could be locations, or it could be like anything, a meme, whatever. As long as like every now and again I'll hit a point where it's like the music is just right and the image that I'm looking at is super cool, And just from those two elements, an entire character will form almost immediately in my head, and I'll know exactly what I want to do with them. Excuse me. Pebble's actually a really good example of that. I knew what I wanted to do with Pebble as a character from just seeing images of different kobolds and stuff like that, or like D&D things on Pinterest, and watching like YouTube videos and like knowing a little bit about kobolds or whatever. That little bit there kind of kickstarted this. Okay, I will play kobold. I'll make him. What would be really cool? Oh, I'll do a monk. I'll do an astral monk, and I can do the whole dragon thing with that. Why? Why is he an astral monk? Oh, well, I can have this whole personality thing of like, okay, he's got to be wise. What's wise for a kobold? What's something that a kobold would think is like a super wise thing to do? Oh, rocks. Rocks are super wise, right? And yeah, it just trickled down to being Pebble. That's generally my process. Is either the race will inform the personality, and the personality will inform the class, or it'll be just I'll find some sort of cool image and music and go from there.
Yeah, I do. You know, we mentioned earlier that you know, if you make a lot of characters, you should go ahead and try DMing. Like, if you can't help yourself from making lots of characters. I'm sitting here on my characters page on D&D Beyond with my 300 characters that I've built. And I'm just looking at the top few, and there are a bunch of NPCs that I made that will probably never see the light of day because I was bored and decided to make them. Let me give you a quick example of, you know, as a DM, I'm building characters more for a purpose. So I'm less designing a character that I want to play. So when I'm playing as a player, I generally design a little differently than when I'm doing DMing. However, when I'm DMing, I do it as a problem solution. So, for example, when we were doing when we were introducing Pebble, I knew that Travis's character was a monk. And I knew that Jesse's character was a monk. And they're getting up to that level 3 point where they kind of decide their role and stuff like that. And so I was like, well, monks are fist fighters. That would be a solid place to, you know, have a bar fight or something. So I was like, okay, well, what do I need here? I need someone who's going to be kind of, you know, rough, who's going to be a little bit wanting to start something. And, you know, there was a new race that was just added, which was Fairy, in the Unearthed Arcana stuff on D&D Beyond. So I was like...
Did we explain what Unearthed Arcana is?
I don't think so.
I mean, kind of.
Real quick side note, Unearthed Arcana is like online stuff that Wizards of the Coast put out for D&D, but it's not like actual official rules. It's like playtest content.
Yeah, it's like workshopping.
Yeah, I think that's the term they usually use is playtest. Unearthed Arcana is just the flavored text that they give to it. You'll see it marked on a lot of D&D stuff if it says UA. It means that it's not a finished, published thing.
Like right now, if you look on there, there's a Dampier Unearthed Arcana, but the finished thing will be in the new book that's coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there was a new fairy race. And so I was like, okay, so back in our other campaign, we had the NPC, Benvolio. And I thought that was a hilarious character, but it's hard to build something more effective as an actual character that's, you know, an inch tall fairy. This lets you do it, essentially, functionally. So I was like, hey, I'd love to have a fairy be a monk and fist fight these people and it just be like a one-on-one equal fight. And so I was like, of course I'm going to make him a drunken master because he's in a bar. He can just bathe in a cup if he really wants to. And so I was like, okay, he's going to be a fairy. He's going to be a monk, way of the drunken master. He's got to be tough enough that he can fight more than one of them. And so I was like, okay, he's got to be level 4. So I went on, build the character. D&D Beyond has a random character name generator. You can just use the one, or you can just cycle through them until you see one that catches your eyes. I went with Soapstone, and it never came up. I don't think anyone ever mentioned his name. But for me, having that character's name is part of like making a little simple identity. And then I just made him aggressive and try to provoke a fight.
Which was easy.
Yeah. At the same time, I'm also like planning ahead to have, characters show up that I know, like I'm making in our, we really should have just podcasted the other campaign.
Yeah.
But in the other campaign,
The reason why we're talking about the other campaign so much is because
it's 5th edition.
It's 5th edition, and that's what we're talking about now.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to talk about the current campaign just because it's a completely different game and the systems are...
Yeah, if we had planned, like I said, since the Starfinder game wasn't planned to be a podcasting originally, we probably would have done a 5th edition game.
Oh yeah, most certainly.
It's also like the other game has just really good examples of everything we're talking about right now in it. It's like the tutorial level.
I'm sure our Curse of Strahd one will have good examples of some of the stuff too.
Yeah.
But for like Chris and Austin's characters are essentially going home. They're meeting up with their families. They have something of a backstory of who they are, but I'm just filling in a bunch of blanks by making their family.
Yeah.
So I've got a bunch of characters that I can build in different ways.
Our backstory together was that we just left to go like travel and like find ourselves, and it's like this whole like journey our characters had to do because like we're a cleric and a paladin. We worship the same god, and we're like going through these things until like we're actually officially invited into like the folds of the rest of them.
Yeah.
The rest of the clerics and paladins.
Basically till we reach our rite of passage.
Yeah.
Yeah. And our characters were together. His character was protecting mine. I was a cleric.
Not that he needs it, to be honest.
Yeah. We found that out pretty quickly. And our backstory is literally just we worship the same god. Yeah. We like to party and drink. As our god does. We learned about like what the god is all about and stuff, and I tried to like emulate that and like what I do and what I am. And we've just been like going and filling in gaps for our backstories and stuff as we went along. It's been really, really fun.
Yeah.
I think my favorite bit is that I keep using this spell called Inflict Wounds. And it's a really powerful spell on its own. If you hit with it, it does 3d10 damage, but you have to touch someone. And I have not rolled below like 20, which is like over twice the amount of health that the normal enemy has. So I've just been vaporizing people consistently for whatever reason. And it's the funniest thing. And I also really liked how, like, if you're a GM, you don't just have to, like, let an overpowered character just start killing everything. Like, I wouldn't say mine is overpowered. I've just been getting really, really good rolls. But Tom saw that, and I was like, I should just expect these good rolls for Inflict Wounds. And something that I like he did was we were fighting this big boss enemy, and I was trying to trick the big boss enemy into, like, getting into a range where I could, like, grab him. Or whatever. I was like trying to trick him because my god is a trickster god. And he did, and I grabbed him, and I used Inflict Wounds, and it healed him because he was undead and would get unhealed by necrotic energy. And I was like, oh shit.
It should be said that also he was trying to use Inflict Wounds on you too, which is really funny.
It was real funny. It was basically a handshake of death that I certainly lost.
I always envisioned it like a little joy buzzer. That you have in your hand. It's a little prank.
That's how I thought of it too.
He just has a bigger joy buzzer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but something along those lines. By the way, that alone has been a great thing for me planning out stuff to do in the campaign later along. Not that specific event, but the fact that your character is particularly leaning towards using this spell that works well for him.
Yeah.
But, like, I look at it, okay, what is the family of these people like? Do they, I've already planned out, because it's part of a world I'm building. I've got a whole bunch of stuff surrounding it.
Yeah. I think we also didn't podcast it because this campaign was, like, also helping you flesh out stuff in your world.
And things are changing. I'm retconning things, because I'm like, I decided to rename this, and,
Yeah, like, I forgot to write down this, or I don't know where I wrote this down, so now it's named this. I'm like, okay, that's fine.
I don't remember what it was before anyway.
Yeah, so one of the things that I've gone around with is coming up with characters that would know your characters and be part of your characters, and how they would view your characters in different lights, because there's multiple tribes that are all part of the nation that you're from, and each tribe has its own beliefs and ways of doing things, but you're both part of groups that, like, these smaller groups that are kind of like multiple members of the tribes all together for various reasons. And so, like, all the paladins from all the tribes all work together in sort of a singular thing. They know each other. They have an order to how they do things, and so they've got a bit of a thing. So how does a paladin of devotion who worships a very different god than yours view your trickster god and your views in a positive way when they are very different?
Yeah.
And how those things connect is part of my world building stuff, but then I have to build a character that actively
embodies
that. And so I made a bunch of paladins that all, like, they have one unifying aspect is why they work together, but they all have different oaths. It's not like a solid order that we're all about devotion or one particular oath. No, they all take their own vows when they become paladins, and it can be any of the different oaths that a paladin can take. And similarly with the clerics, there's a pantheon. So all the different clerics of different deities are all together kind of like, well, hey, our deities have our own different things, but there is an overarching pantheon that we all kind of work under. And so, you'll have, clerics of other deities that are, working with you to help you in your journey forward. But I don't think those things are as important, honestly, as the family. Because there's people that you're going to come home and see.
Yeah.
And so building characters for that, like, what is the family like that this person came from?
How would this person come out of these two?
Yes, and there's two ways you can look at it. You can look at it as that, they're like one of them, or both of them, or they're completely different than both of them. And how do these people view this this rite of passage thing? What do your parents think about what you've done so far, and how, are they against it? Do they support you? In what ways do they do that? Because people are very different in how they do those things. And so the best way to handle that is to build them as characters, essentially. And so when I build NPCs that are going to be important, I tend to make a whole bunch of stuff that the players will never see, because it helps flesh them out as characters, and that stuff can affect their decision making. So you might like your character's father might never cast a spell, but he might be a druid that has, a bunch of spells that are all utility for handling whatever he's doing at the time.
I think one of my favorite things when you GM is how, like, you build a world and, like, the world is going on as the campaign is going on. I find that, like, impressive and stuff. I think one of my favorite things is you were telling us about the Eberron campaign, where there was shit going on in the background that we had no idea about at all through the entire campaign, and it just, like, happened. And there was also shit that just we didn't notice until, like, very much later on.
Yeah.
I think my favorite thing that we actually interacted with was the dude that kept trying to get revenge on the children for killing his friend. And the children just never fucking noticed him until the end.
That's the thing. If you mentioned some of that stuff, there was some of that you guys were supposed to get involved in, or at least be aware of, and you just kept rolling badly whenever it came to noticing that sort of thing. A couple times you guessed what was going on.
Yeah, those are always moments where, as a DM, you kind of have to sit there and go, okay, I can either completely drop this on them and feel like it comes out of left field and, potentially kill all of them with a surprise sneak attack or whatever, or I could just let it slide and maybe try again later.
Now, I kind of got way off on a DM thing there, but as a player, I don't very often play. I'm usually DMing, so I am often like at a loss when I first start building a character. Like, okay, what do I want to do? And it almost always starts from a visual. Like Travis, I go through Pinterest all the time, and because I've saved so many things that are D&D or fantasy or art related, I've got plenty of things that pop up, and I wait and I go through until I see something that, like, I can visualize that and, like, okay, well, how can I make this with D&D? And that's how I approach it. I always build my concepts for characters always come from outside of D&D. I generally don't use the rule set to develop my characters at first. I come up with something, and wow, everyone just went on their phones all at the same time.
I'm not on my phone. I'm picking my hand. I just look like I'm on my phone.
I've been looking at characters and stuff. It's D&D related, I swear.
I look here, I see you on the phone, I see Travis like this, and I was like...
No.
You put his feelings.
But no, I like...
Trust us, what you have to say is very interesting.
When I build a character, I construct them almost entirely outside of D&D, and then I go into it, and I'm like, okay, how do I build this in D&D? What race fits this visual for this character that I wanted? Which one fits it best? Like, if I want to build like a kitsune in a Japanese-style setting, I'm going to look at it and I'm going to be like, okay, which race fits this best? I could do an adaptation, like a slight modification of like a tabaxi. But like if I wanted to be closer to like the legendary style of kitsune, it would almost be better to be a changeling, and because the shape-shifting aspect. And, maybe a shifter would fit that. And, it's... You go around and find what works. Honestly, I think Fae is probably the best choice for something like that. And so I have that, and then I find which class best fits whatever it is I want them to actively do. And we're now at the point in D&D 5th edition where there's enough options that you can build anything. If I want to, play someone who throws birds at people and that's how they fight, that is 100% doable. I have a character right here that does that.
Oh, all right.
Fighting style, throwing weapon. Weapon, their animal companion.
So not throwing birds, but throwing bird.
Throwing bird, yes.
It's like Mordecai from Borderlands 1.
Yeah. Yeah. Or 2, because he is in Borderlands 2.
Can't play him.
No, you can't, but he is in there.
I have a...
You can't throw birds at people, Travis.
That's just because you don't believe hard enough.
I have a character built, which is not meant to be played. It's just a concept that I built to try out and see how can I build this in D&D. That's I've got 300 characters on here because I do stuff like that. That's one of the things is that you can build one of two things. You can build two things in D&D. You can build something that works well in D&D, or you can try to make something fit that wasn't designed for D&D. And both of those things are okay. You can't make a character like if I said I wanted to, I had someone say, I want to play
Gandalf?
No,
Santa.
Chuck Norris. And I was like, okay, well, and I said, okay, well, and they said, specifically the meme Chuck Norris that can do all this stuff and destroy the world and stuff. And it's like, okay, you can't do that. You can play a character who can eventually become that.
Yeah. Like, not every character you make is going to be level 20 immediately.
Yeah, exactly.
I've never played a level 20 character.
I don't think I have
It's not that great.
Also, don't underestimate the value of playing a character who's bad in combat.
Yeah.
Who's bad at things in general.
I think
It's more interesting when you have shortcomings like that.
Not even just from a party perspective, but from a personal, as a player, you can have more fun knowing that, oh, well, I guess I'll give it a try, even though it's I suck at this.
My favorite...
It does feel even better when you do it good.
Yeah.
Before we did Eberron, I believe we did Shadowrun.
Yes.
That was experience.
Yeah, it's a whole other thing.
And during character creation, which is an experience itself, Shadowrun has this thing where you can take, perks for your character to have, and you have a specific number of, points you can spend. But you can also take perks that are only detrimental to your character, but they give you more points to spend.
Yeah.
And
I do really like something like that.
My
That's pretty
favorite thing of building my character was taking things that would be a detriment to my character, because it would be really cool to role play that stuff.
Play a character that's got all these issues.
Also, bad things can happen in the game, and the DM can give you bad tags.
I like stuff like that, and then stuff like Monster of the Week, where if you fail, you get to mark experience.
Yeah.
Stuff like that's pretty cool.
I think one of the favorite things that happened was we were raiding this one place of this cult, and I was like, oh, I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to steal all these grenades. I'm going to fill up an entire backpack full of grenades. This military-grade backpack.
It wasn't even just grenades. I think it was after we cleared the place out. We were in no danger.
Yeah.
And you went through and gathered up all of the guns, all of the ammo.
No, it was all the explosives.
Yeah.
All the explosives in one huge fucking backpack. And I was like, alright, I'm going to go get them now. And I picked it up, and Tom was like, hold on, you gotta roll a strength check for that, because you are a teenage girl, and this is an entire backpack filled to the brim with explosives.
Yeah.
And I rolled a critical glitch.
Yeah, which was essentially rolling a 1 more or less.
Yeah, it's a 1, but imagine a 1 that's even worse.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, my character, dislocated a plate in her back.
Oh boy.
And had
you
to
threw your back out and
yeah.
We had to spend a decent amount of time just not doing anything.
Yeah, fixing
feeling your back and everything.
And
something I've actually experienced, by the way.
Yeah.
And after that, my character had permanent penalties to being agile and motionable in combat and stuff. But it was
lucky for you. You were a Gundam mech fighter, so that didn't really slow you down too much.
It was really fun because I then was like, all right, well, every single day my character's going to at least attempt to start the day doing yoga and stuff. Mm-hmm. And she streamed all the time. She'd stream her fights and stuff. So it'd be all right, everybody, welcome to the morning yoga podcast.
Do the yoga first, then
do the yoga
kill
podcast,
people.
Then get into your mech suit and go fight some stuff. And it was just a really fun campaign. And I really love all I love the detriments as well as
There are a lot
things
of fun
that are
things
good.
happening in that campaign, but it was not a fun campaign to play, necessarily.
The rules were not fun to figure out. The campaign was fun to play.
Shadowrun's a rough game.
It's rough, but I will say that heist was cool as hell.
Yes.
We began the game with a heist that went like exactly as planned. It
I
was
think
the
the
coolest.
first time it's ever happened in human history.
Yeah, we're the first guys. We'll take our Guinness World Record spot now.
Yeah. No, like, that's another thing. I mean, I guess we haven't really touched on it at all, but, like, there's so many games out there that have, like, completely different, like, feels. I don't know what the best word to use for it is, but, like, Dungeons and Dragons, we've talked a lot about how it's, like, you know, you can use Dungeons and Dragons for just about anything. But there are also games out there that are, like, purpose-built for a particular kind of experience.
Mm-hmm.
One that I've always wanted to mess around with but never have was Call of Cthulhu, which I may be saying that wrong, but it's the way I'm naturally predisposed to saying the word Cthulhu. Cthulhu. However, you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
But that is like a super interesting game, and it's essentially just a meat grinder of a game. The idea is that you're not necessarily supposed to win, nor survive.
Yeah, you have when looking for other modules to like see what's fun and stuff. You should really have a good understanding of what happens in those modules and
Yes.
how to play.
Yeah.
Because like not everything is going to be like D&D. Like
No.
D&D is meant to like have fun, tell a story. You can do whatever and like have fun with your friends.
Be the heroes.
Shit like Call of Cthulhu is like you're gonna suffer. All
Yeah.
right.
Try and
this
survive as long as you can.
This game will make you feel good by going, "Ha! I survived to level 3," and then everybody's like, "Whoa! How'd you get that? How'd you get that far with
Yeah.
all the demons trying to get you?"
I went insane.
Yeah.
Or another completely different type of game is Vampire the Masquerade, which, from what I understand, most of the people that listen have a passing knowledge of Vampire the Masquerade. But like that game is super interesting because there's tons of rules in the book for long form multiple groups to all be playing at the same time. So like you can have like 3 or 4 different full groups with their own DMs all working together. Working together is in quotes there. Of like they're all playing at the same time, and actions from one group can have effects in other groups and stuff like that. There are systems for that, and characters are in it only for themselves.
I can only fucking imagine like being in that chaos.
Mm-hmm.
I just imagine like there's 3 tables, all of them are doing their own thing, and the DMs have like phones next to them, being like, "Hey, this thing has happened in the world," or whatever. And then somebody's like, "All right, everybody's like in a park or whatever," and then he gets a message that just says, "The park has been exploded."
Legitimately, like you could do stuff like that in Vampire the Masquerade. From what I understand, a lot of groups like that will do it over Discord. You know, like all the teams will have like a private Discord channel they will talk to each other on about like, different things that are happening, you know, right now and stuff like that. But like Vampire the Masquerade it plays completely different than D&D. Like combat is so much of a non-factor, and you as a character are just so much more powerful than anyone else other than another vampire, that like combat is purely style. You're doing sick DMC combos on people from level 1. And like the stat system is completely different. And you know, if you're playing D&D and you find that you're not really compelled by a lot of the mechanics or the items or anything like that, you can make your own stuff, but there are other games out there to take a look at that might fit better for the group. We played Star Wars, like a Dungeons & Dragons 3.5 Star Wars module thing.
It's the Star Wars D20 system from when 3.5 was
I
popular.
don't know if you can hear it.
It's coming through.
Pause.
We'll give it a second.
Tell me when to clap.
Now.
3, 2, 1.
Okay, now do it again.
3, 2, 1.
One more time.
3, 2, 1.
What were you saying?
I'm not cutting anything of that. No, it's just...
Honestly, I wouldn't.
There's the Star Wars D20 system. There's actually like 3 or 4 Star Wars pen and paper RPGs. The one we played was made with the D20 system from back when Dungeons and Dragons was in 3.5, I believe.
Yeah.
It's solid. It's the basis for KOTOR. KOTOR uses the system of that game, so a lot of it carries over. If you know how to play KOTOR, it works. But there's a lot more, and there are some other things that aren't quite so like well fleshed out and explained.
Yeah,
I think
and you're never going to find a perfect tabletop game.
I think like my favorite thing about it all too is just how fluid everything is, and like there's nothing that's definitive. You don't have to do anything. You're never set into stone. Nothing is ever set into stone. For the Star Wars campaign, we were doing Starfinder. We started out a campaign.
We started Starfinder. We barely did one session.
We barely did anything, and then we left. We came back to the comic shop that we used to play at, and we were setting things up. And like I remember, we were setting things up, and we were just joking about Star Wars, about how the bands in Star Wars are actually called jizz bands.
Yeah,
and we spent like 30 minutes just talking about jizz bands.
we had a name for a jizz band. I don't remember what it was. Something stupid.
I have a Google document
Oh my god.
titled Jizz Bands.
Oh boy.
I believe.
Alright.
Somewhere.
We'll stop the presses. We're going to wait for you to answer this.
And I only have one name in it because I've never really added to it.
The chosen ones.
If somebody finds this laptop...
Okay, if something happens to me, you get the laptop and I get this like, oh yeah, Star Wars band names. Whiz Gizzard, the Jizz Wizard.
And so, like, we were just doing that, and, like...
This is a public place, by the way, where we were doing
Yeah.
it.
Yes.
And then, I don't know, we weren't setting up for Starfinder.
We were just sitting there. We were waiting for...
No, I had just gotten this new Star Wars set from the convention.
Yes.
And I was like, hey, let's play
Star Wars.
Let's try this out. Yeah.
Let's try this out, because
came with
I bought this.
It came with an introductory adventure.
Yeah, I was like, it's a small little adventure we could all do. And so, like...
As true D&D players,
Yeah.
instantly, you guys broke it.
Yeah. It's still...
Like,
it
there
was
was
the
a setup.
easiest.
It was a setup, which was like, oh yeah, the characters, this has happened to them. They're on the run. They run into a bar to hide. And you guys ran into the bar, and that's where the game started. And I was like, all right, you guys need to hide now.
So we hid.
And I was DMing this.
Uh-huh.
And so I was like, okay, so they search. They didn't find them. And I was like, all right, well, they didn't find them, so I guess they walk out. And the very next thing in the manual is, and then when the players are found, a fight breaks out.
Yeah. Or, like, if they're not found, the players get the drop on them.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And the module just expects a fight to ensue,
Mm-hmm.
whereas all of our characters are just like, why?
Let's just go.
Why would we shoot them?
Why would we start killing people?
Why would we start a fight that we were running away from, no less?
Yeah.
Like, if we were running from these guys, I'd assume that they have the advantage over us, so let's just let them leave.
Yeah.
But it was just like, alright, now you fight. It's like the
Immediately
Shiba
broken.
Inu meme, where it's like...
Well, it didn't even say like,
Pushing the
oh,
two
now you
dogs
fight.
together.
It's that now that the players are fighting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
But, we liked the Star Wars aspect.
Yeah.
We loved how it was Star Wars, hated the module, hated like how we played it.
Tom was
So-
like, I think I still have some books.
Yeah, Tom was like, "Oh yeah, we got these like Star Wars things. Do you guys want to
Also,
make
I've run
characters?"
Star Wars D20 before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I could come up with something much better than this just myself.
Yeah, and so I was like, I'd love to do that. So we all made Star
So
Wars
we made
characters.
our own Star Wars with blackjack and hookers.
Yeah.
Yeah, we literally just like started a
I
campaign.
mean, space
that-
stakes and
Yeah.
lizards.
Space stakes.
And what's the droid's name?
T3.
T3, which became
We also had an-
E3.
we
which
also
became E11.
yeah.
No, it wasn't T3. That's the one from
KOTOR.
KOTOR.
He was that type of droid. Though.
T7.
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 There was
T7.
also a ship full of ramen I had.
Ship full of ramen and your box full of thermal detonators.
yeah.
And your inspiration for your Eberron characters.
Man, I love that campaign. I believe that's the first campaign we actually played all the way through and had
From
a
beginning to
definite
end.
ending.
Yes.
Oh, actually, yeah. We should talk about this real quick. So, new players should not be discouraged if a campaign just suddenly ends.
Yeah, that's normal.
That happens all the time.
It's happened with us a lot.
Yeah, like, you'll get bored of playing one thing and you'll just stop and then you'll pick up something else completely different. It is super common to happen.
We're trying not to do that for the podcast.
Yeah. For you know, when
That's
you're just
kinda
playing
what-
casually.
That's kind of what we were talking earlier. How when you record it and everything, it's a different
Mhm.
approach.
Yeah.
Kinda.
When
Yeah.
you're just playing the game casually, you know, you're just there to have fun, and if you stop having fun, why keep on doing it?
Yeah.
You've got nothing's keeping you here. So switch over to something that you do think would be fun.
You
so
also
we switched over to Star Wars, and
Yeah.
we
You also
played Star
don't
Wars.
have to like switch over, and it like the switch to Star Wars was natural.
Yeah.
It was literally like we're gonna play sci-fi anyway. Why not play this setting that everybody's super excited about?
Yeah, and that everybody, apart from myself, knows a lot about.
Yeah. It was real fun. But like you also don't have to like change stuff. Like if you want and you feel like the settings like blind, don't want to play it anymore, you've gotten bored, you could totally change it and like just play something else. But you could also just like go in an entirely different direction. You don't have to like stay with what the story was.
Yeah.
You could be like, well, the Demon King that you were gonna fight, dead now.
Like,
He's
let's
He
say
dead.
had a heart attack. He's dead.
Let's say you're a bunch of pirates, and you decide that you don't want to go onto the water at all, and you decide to go into the desert. That could happen.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you turn a corner and there's the ocean.
Oh my
And a
god.
pirate ship just waiting for you.
The desert opens up. It's like a baseball stadium. There's water underneath. You're in the ocean.
I'll say another thing, which is just like another, like, I guess words of encouragement here. If you're an aspiring DM, if you look up a bunch of stuff, like YouTube videos or anything like that, of like tips on how to be a better DM, a lot of times one of the most common ones is like staying away from railroading players. And railroading just is giving them no options. The players can't do anything but the exact story you dictate has to play out the exact way it has to play out. To make a campaign that doesn't do that requires skill and experience. So you're gonna do it to some extent.
You're going to do it, but if you try to force the players through gameplay to make them do it, it'll be a problem. But remember, these are other people who are there. You can talk to them like normal people.
You can say like, oh,
hey, I got an idea for an adventure. Or if someone's like doing something's going to really take it off course, you can be like, if you do that, the adventure's not going to work. So can we think of some way?
Adventure.
Can we think of some way to make it go this way?
You're there to have fun. You know, there's no. It goes back to that the whole like Matt Mercer effect and the recording things. Nothing's keeping you here. You don't have any obligation to run Dungeons and Dragons the correct way. You have no obligation to stick to the initial plan. But as a new DM, you're going to rely on things like railroading players just because you don't have the experience to get them hooked onto whatever your campaign is or interested in. And then sometimes you won't have that problem at all. and all of the players are going to be super gung-ho about whatever your concept is.
Mm-hmm.
They'll have characters ready. They'll be, out the gate, they'll be running for
Yeah.
it.
What you want to avoid doing is if the players start doing something that you don't want them to do, and you try to use in-game stuff to force them back onto what you want to do, by the guards show up and say, you can't go this way. And they're like, well, we'll try to sneak past the guards. Because if you put in-game obstacles up against players, that's not a deterrent. That's a challenge. That's encouraging them to go that way.
It's a better idea to give the players their ball pit and let them roll around in it until they're tired, and then tell them it's time to eat pizza.
Yeah, when I was running, my first, actual campaign, the whole, you don't even have to, the setting, the story and stuff you set for players doesn't have to be that. I was gonna be alright, there's gonna be some, big, evil, thing, this enemy army that's coming to, invade. And, I'm just setting up these characters so they're a little bit more powerful and experienced, and we all know what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And they went off to, this city that I had just, made all weird and stuff, and I was just playing with, psychological horror a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
But they spent a lot of time there, and they did a lot of stuff there.
You've told me about this before.
Yeah, and they were well, this is awful, we can't let this, happen. And so we started, going over, and they're hey guys, this place sucks. We should go kill everyone over there. It's actual bad stuff's happening over there. There's a lot of meat-related activities we don't agree with. And
it's very important to realize that with these types of games, that it's constantly changing.
Yeah.
Anything that the players or even you as a DM do could change the shape of the story in a way you may not have originally planned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and part of being a DM and where you get to role play, apart from just being NPCs, is in your ability to take the actions of those players and pull a yes and roll with it.
And say, okay, what would actually happen here?
Mm-hmm.
And I had some cities that were totally with these people, and one of those cities is one of the ones they went to first to go hey, we gotta deal with these guys. And then the dude who's super under their thumb was yes, of course, yes.
So,
turn around, please.
Yeah.
along the lines of what you're talking about,
What's your full name and address again?
if the players decide that they are having way too much fun with something off to the side and they're taking too long for something that is a pressing event, you can, like I was kind of doing with the Everrun campaign, you can have stuff happening in the background that they're not aware of that's altering the situation. That's changing how things are playing out. And you can adapt that so that, say they abandon the quest to stop the end of the world. You can do a bunch of stuff. You could pull the killer DM thing and say, you've managed to depose the evil king and reinstated your new philosophy and laws in this country that are much more open for, all these things that are going on. This was entirely player driven. Also, next morning, here comes the army of the undead because it didn't deal with that evil demon lord. Or you can take it along the lines of well, no one was showing up and a hero arose and started, so there was another group of heroes that took care of that problem.
Someone took all the glory from you.
While these guys were, putzing around in this town, carving statues and, selling linguini.
Hey, I made a lot of money doing that.
Or, you could also just, subtly start having bad shit happen. If you're alright, there's a specific battle you gotta do, otherwise this entire town will be, taken over, and, the demon army will, get closer, or whatever. And then the players wake up that morning. They're alright, we're gonna get breakfast before the battle. Who's in that corner? And you're oh, that's just Chormbo the Goblin, but, he doesn't matter. We want to talk to Chormbo the Goblin, alright? Mm-hmm. And then they go to Chormbo the Goblin, and they spend an entire week just dicking around with Chorbo the Goblin collecting seashells from Atlantis with him because he wants to make necklaces that he can sell for gold to live with his wife and kids. And then you come back, hey, we need you for the defense of this town. And you're like, wait, what? Aren't we supposed to be at this other town? And they're like, yeah, don't know. Demons took that town. We need you to defend against the demons in this town now.
That's a solid...
Or just go with something like, trade routes have closed now, so,
How do we get Trumbull the Goblin to his family?
Yeah.
We're going to have to go through the Demon Lord's army.
Yeah. For Chorbo!
yeah.
Don't underestimate, though, how much fun and epic story you can get with mundane activities.
Yeah.
I really want to run a Shadowrun campaign, if I could stand the rules, where the 100% deal is that it's the players are trying to run a ramen stand. They're trying to run a ramen stand, and so you just go along with, like, okay, how do they get their ingredients? Who are their suppliers? Are there competitors? How successful can they be? You know, stuff like that. You can do that in D&D just as easily, where you have like a bunch, like a party whose sole goal is to, his sole goal is to sell cabbages, and
the Avatar keeps fucking wrecking them.
Yeah, you could totally make a campaign based off of that idea.
Compelling campaign based off that.
Yeah. And you literally, there are resources that you can get that make stuff like that happen. The DM's guide has a bunch of them. There's things in there that are like the rules in like the DM's guide and the player's guide. All those extra minutia rules like that have all these little details about stuff. It's not that you have to roll for the weather every day for your characters. But if you want to do something weather related, it's there. You can access those rules if you wish to use them.
If you're traveling a long distance, you might as well have the players.
If you don't want to do that, that's fine. If you want to do a montage travel. Mm-hmm. But if you want weather to be an aspect of what's going on, you don't have to come up with that completely on your own because they've made rules for that. But they're there for you to pull whenever you need them or you want them.
It's like during character creation, where it doesn't have to be all on you. D&D can be as computer generated as you want it to be. Yeah. There's literally things you roll on character creation sheets that are like, alright, this is like your ideal, this is your bond, this is like deciding factor of your character that's like a flaw, and like stuff like that. And like you can roll that, you can choose whatever you want, or you could just make it up yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you go on D&D Beyond and go to character creation, there's 3 character creation options. Standard, where you make choices using the step-by-step. Quick build, where you make a first level character using recommended starting option. Or randomize. I just clicked randomize. We'll choose level 1. Create a character. Philagar is the name of this character. And he is a
we should do this.
Revenant Barbarian. First level.
Revenant Barbarian, okay. What race is he?
That's the race Revenant.
Oh, Revenant. I didn't know Revenant was a race. Subclass Barbarian.
No. Well, it's Reborn is what it's actually called. But and these are his skills: history, intimidation, perception, and persuasion.
I just imagine this big barbarian with like a monocle and stuff, and the scholar cap.
This barbarian is a noble.
Oh,
dude, this is a good character thing. It's like a barbarian. He's just like this big jacked fucking scholar guy with like real fancy clothes and stuff, and like he's really bad at history, except he's really good at intimidation. So he's just like, you know what? The Romans history. The Romans were the best empire, and they actually settled in Japan. And somebody could go, "No, they didn't. What are you talking about?" And he'll go, "They settled in Japan." And I'll go, okay.
I'm imagining like he has an alter ego. He takes off his like scholarly hat and he puts on like a little Viking hat, and his whole posture and everything just changes.
So he knows how to play the dragon chess. He speaks Leonin. Let's see here. Any other one? Yeah, he speaks Common, Leonin, and Primordial. And these are his details. His personality traits. Personality traits which are randomly rolled in your background in D&D. In the Player's Handbook, you can choose them, you can make them up, or you can roll for them. My favor once lost is lost forever. Despite my noble birth, I do not place myself above other folk. We all have the same blood. It really fits with the barbarian thing.
Yeah.
His ideals. Respect. Respect is due me because of my position, but all people, regardless of station, deserve to be treated with dignity. Bonds. I am in love with the heir of a family that my family despises. And flaws. I hide a truly scandalous secret that could ruin my family forever.
Perhaps that you're in love with a family that you're...
Hey Tom, can we add this barbarian into a campaign?
The moment I click randomize, that is in my character list.
I love this guy. I love him.
And given that he's reborn, it means that he's been brought back from the dead in one form or another.
Yeah.
So, super interesting character right off the bat, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, that's the thing. If you have no idea, you can do something like this and hit randomize. Along those same lines, there are some good resources out there for this type of thing. Obviously, my favorite go-to is Donjon.
Yeah.
If you go to the webpage, donjon.bin.sh is okay. So it's some person. I don't know anything about this person except that their website is incredible.
Some person.
Yeah, I don't even want to say guy or girl. I don't know who it is.
Hey, Don John, hit us up. Sponsor us.
No, everyone send money to Donjon. This is one of the best resources I've ever had for DMing. And it's just a bunch of random generators and computer, programming done.
Send all the jewels of your adventures to Don John.
Yeah, so there's general stuff, like a name generator, fantasy-specific stuff, like a fantasy name generator. A more generic random generator that does random quests, random locations, random encounters, random NPCs. Pickpocket loot. What kind of stuff do you get when you pickpocket someone? Stuff you find in a giant's bag. Legendary weapons. Ancient tomes. A randomly made castle. A random town and city. Random ship. Random worlds. Just for embellishment stuff, a random coat of arms. Random graffiti you find in dungeons. Omens and portents, prophecies, secret door designs. And that's all just in the fantasy section. You can also do a fantasy world generator, a fantasy calendar generator, medieval demographics. You can randomly generate an entire adventure with one click on this, where it'll just give you the theme, goal, story hook, plot, climax, general setting, 2 specific settings, your master villain, 2 minor villains, an ally, a random monster encounter, a character encounter, 1 death trap, a chase, a prophecy, a secret weakness, a special condition, a moral quandary, a red herring, and a cruel trick that you can use to just make a random campaign right away, which was what I would do if we had the other... If we were doing a one-shot tonight, I would have used this and randomly generated an adventure for us to do.
Yeah, I'd really fucking love to just do all random, where, now that I know that, you could do such an in-depth random character off of,
Yeah.
An idea I suggested to Austin was, it'd be really cool if we did a, one-shot that basically we put a vote out to the public and basically have, okay, these are the classes, vote for whatever classes you think would be interesting, and then we each get to pick one of the classes that were the most highly voted.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
The random dungeon generator can produce decent dungeons. They can be boring, though. I will say that when they're randomly generated. But they have stuff there that works.
I've done for my campaign a few randomized dungeons.
Yeah.
If you just do base, this is what it says it is, so we're gonna do it like this, then it can be boring. But you can do whatever the fuck you want in it.
Yeah.
I had a dungeon where the characters basically blew past everything that they were supposed to go through, found a single path in the middle that led them to almost the end, except that there were stairs that you couldn't like take that got to like the last area. And by these stairs, there was like this demon guy with these two guards, and they were just supposed to attack the party. But I was like, man, this demon guy's probably not super happy that there's like driders and stuff in this like dungeon of his, and he'll like see them as like worthless. So he makes a deal with the party. It's like, hey, I'll give you this cool orb if you kill everybody in the dungeon. I won't kill you. And, like, you can just leave then. And then I'll have my dungeon, you'll have the treasure, and we'll go about our ways. And so now the party's working on killing everything in the dungeon for this demon.
Yeah, the stuff that you can get on here, it's all meant just to be like, okay, you don't know exactly what you're going to do, but you randomly roll, and it gives you a framework that you can then use, like, okay, I know how I can do this. My favorite thing on this entire site, though, has got to be in the 5th edition random generator, weird magic item.
Yes.
Lazy Great Axe. At the start of each encounter, if you're holding this weapon, roll a d6. If you roll a 6, you gain a +1 bonus to attack and damage rolls made with it for the duration of the encounter. Otherwise, it's a magic weapon that doesn't grant a bonus.
Interesting.
Let's see here. The Sinister Glove. While wearing this black leather glove, you become left-handed. In addition, you can use an action to cast the spell Protection from Evil and Good. The glove can't be used this way again until the next dawn.
That'd be so tricky. You put on a glove and all of a sudden you're left-handed.
Scroll of Wall of Paper. You can use an action to read this scroll, which causes it to grow into a large paper wall adjacent to you. The wall is composed of 10 10-foot by 10-foot panels. Each must be contiguous with at least one other panel. Elemental creatures can't willingly pass through the wall and have disadvantage on attack rolls against targets on the other side of the wall. The wall lasts until destroyed or for 1 hour. Let's see here. Quarterstaff of Armor Theft. When you attack a creature that is wearing armor with this weapon and roll a 20 on the attack roll, the creature's armor falls to the ground and you are affected as though you had cast the spell Mage Armor on yourself. Yeah, there's all sorts of random cool things in here. But it's also a great way to generate random encounters if you're doing stuff. I prefer to custom build, like, battles and stuff like that, but you can randomly do it through here. One thing that is useful is random treasure. So if you find a treasure chest, you can randomly roll it here instead of rolling on all the charts in the DM's guide and stuff like that.
Yeah, I do that a lot. Also, another site that is really, really good for like new GMs is Cobalt Fight Club, where you can like put in how many party members you have, what level they are, and then you can build an encounter that, based off of the XP that the creatures will give if defeated, will tell you if the encounter is easy, medium, hard, or deadly, and you can like build encounters based off of all that. And so you don't A, underlevel an encounter and make it too easy, and B, overlevel an encounter and kill the entire party immediately. I've used it a lot, and it's really helpful.
I have not heard of that. That's super cool.
Yeah.
I will say, yeah, that's that's a pretty solid thing. There's a version of that in Donjon and a version of it on D&D Beyond. Cobalt Fight Club is probably one of the best ones if you don't own any of the stuff to go to.
Yeah.
While we're on the subject of like DMing and stuff, how would you say the best way to start off DMing is, basically? Like, for a lot of people, it's pretty overwhelming just looking at all the books and everything.
Yeah, and there's a certain element of it that's like you really have to... it's one thing to like jump in and learn as you go, but like the core thing is understanding some basics of how the system works. And
what do you mean by basics of how the system works? Because that can be a little generic.
Yeah, exactly. The game, look, the books are not going to tell you this, but there are some average numbers that are like, okay, this generally means this. 10, like in character stats, 10 is average. That's the average person. That means you don't add or subtract anything when you roll. If you have commoners that are doing things like NPCs, you just roll a d20, and if it's high enough, it works well. This can simplify a lot of stuff.
You can also use these numbers for challenge ratings as well. 10 can be a very simple task that has a chance of failure.
Not challenge ratings.
Not challenge ratings. Sorry.
DC. Difficulty.
Yeah.
Something. Yeah, DCs.
But, like, you can use that same mentality for doing actions.
10 is the average because on a d20, the center
10
is 10. So if you... Like, if nothing else, the numbers are...
The numbers, Mason.
The numbers are the key things that, like, confuse people. But in general, 10 is your average. If, you're like, if someone's trying to do something and like, oh, I want to do this, okay, have them roll. And if they roll higher than, if their result is higher than 10 and it was a basic thing that isn't too difficult, that's good. If it's something that's hard to do, maybe 15. Mm-hmm. For most stuff that's like that, if you don't know any of the stats of the monster that you've got,
you need to make up something on the fly where a player wants to do something and you don't have any basis of how difficult should this be. They need to roll something for it, but I don't know what. Like, think about, is it a difficult thing to do? Is it a pretty common thing to do? Is it super easy to do? Mm-hmm. And there are numbers that you can apply to that. 5, if they roll below 5 on something, they fail it. But if they roll above 5, they succeed. That's a pretty super easy thing to do. There's still a chance of failure, but it's super easy to do.
Yeah, and generally you don't, unless there's like a solid chance of failure, you don't have to roll for it.
Yeah, like let's say there's a little stream or whatever. Somebody doesn't want to get their boots wet and they want to jump over the stream. Make like a DC 10 roll with dexterity or whatever.
Yeah. If you want to get into that level of role playing.
Yeah, most players are going to succeed in doing that, but like there's still a chance of failure, and also that failure is not going to be the end of the world or anything like that.
They fall and hit their head on a rock, they're dead.
Yeah. Or if it could be something like, I want to throw a knife into the gem that is on the forehead of this giant monster that we're fighting, that requires like a pretty high DC to actually achieve that. So that could potentially even be something higher than 20. Because...
Yeah, my general rule of thumb is that I do 10s for easy stuff, 15 for kind of hard stuff, and if it's really hard, I'll just keep going up from 15 to something pretty high.
Yeah.
I generally don't go over 20 with my DCs just because unless it's like real high level, because even like high-powered level 20 characters, the DC for stuff isn't going to be over 20.
But yeah, once you get an idea of like those numbers, a lot of encounters and their difficulties and stuff like that can kind of be played a little bit easier when you're just playing them like by the seat of your pants type of.
And the reason I focus on those numbers is because as a DM, there's a lot of memorizing the specifics of what's going on with all this stuff, and if you don't want to spend a massive amount of time studying and figuring out and memorizing this stuff, just knowing the 10, 15, 20 kind of thing can make a lot of that stuff. You can slip past it while you're DMing. Yeah. But in terms of actually like DMing, you don't have to. You can do it. You can start from scratch, but I usually recommend to people find a published adventure, a module, and do that first.
Yeah, or at the very least just use it to get an idea of what you should be doing.
A good module I see that's recommended for a lot of new time players is The Lost Mine of Phandelver.
Yeah, I've heard that one.
Yeah.
I've never played that one.
Don't do Curse of Strahd.
Don't do Curse of
don't do
Strahd.
Curse of Strahd. Curse of Strahd is great, but it requires quite a bit of knowledge of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's also, like, specific rules that, like, you really gotta look at these rules and determine if, one, you even want to use them.
The reason Curse of Strahd is so beloved is because it's a different beast.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also, like, I know that when I went through my first actual playthrough of Curse of Strahd, the GM was really heavy rules lawyer,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of killed a lot of the enjoyment for me, because I was playing, like, a rogue that would have Thieves Guild connections, and I liked to steal and stuff, but, like, in the world, there was literally no reason to do any of it, and, like, shops wouldn't even have many of the items that normal shops would have because of these other rules, and I just... I didn't really enjoy role-playing my character at all.
Okay.
Yeah. But along those same lines, if you're a starter DM, one of the best things to go to is to check out two things in particular. I've mentioned it a bunch of times now, but Donjon, donjon.bin.sh has a lot of stuff that if you like did not expect, like, oh, I didn't know they were going to talk to this person, name generator.
Yeah, I need something now.
Yeah, I need something now. You can find something pretty quick. The random generator. Yeah, so you just hit the 5th edition random generator has a drop-down list with a bunch of different things that you can, like, oh, I didn't know I was going to need something for this. All right, there it is. This is what's in that treasure chest that you opened. Or that's who this guy is.
I think at one point I did a like pickpocket generator, and the character in question was like, "Oh, I want to get into this noble's pocket and get some gold," and like they just mostly had bones. And they were like, "Why do they have bones?" And I was like, I don't know. Why don't you try and find out? They didn't.
You'd be like, hey, what do you
what
have
was the other
bones in
thing?
your pocket?
You said you had two things.
The other thing... Oh, now that we've gone a little bit off track, I'm kind of losing the...
If you can't remember it, I got our last question.
Well, reading the rules is kind of important.
If you want a good resource for Dungeons and Dragons, the rule book's probably a good place to start.
Yes. This is the thing. You only need basically the player's handbook and the monster manual.
Mm-hmm.
The DM's guide is handy, but that's more of like a toolbox that you can pull stuff out to use. It's not necessary for you to play.
And there are, like, big sets that sell all three together.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if, like, prioritize only what you need. Don't start jumping into DMing and like, oh, I'm going to create this entire new world and have them play in it. And
Just vibe. If you're just starting out, all you need to do is vibe. You can get ambitious when you know what you're doing.
yes. So, like, a couple pitfalls is don't make powerful NPCs. The players are meant to be the heroes.
Yeah.
So don't make like a level 20.
They're all Mr. McCool, and everybody else should be kind of afraid of what they're gonna do.
They're
Yeah.
from Coolsville.
Yeah.
Coolsville, Tennessee.
I think Coolsville sucks.
Like, if you like are trying to do something different, like when you know what you're doing and you have a grip on things, then yeah, maybe like the CR 1/4 guard isn't that much of a threat, and you want to like power them up to like stop your players from stealing shit or murdering people.
Yeah.
Then you could like bump things up as you see fit
It's all
or use
relative.
different stats.
It's all relative. Okay, so last question, and I want to go through each of you. What is one thing that you wished somebody had told you about Dungeons and Dragons way earlier on?
Definitely that it is. You can do anything, but you shouldn't expect shit like an RPG. Because I was heavy into like Skyrim and stuff like that when I started. And again, I was like, guys, I've been like, this is my base equipment I'm still using. What the fuck are we doing? Let's go find some treasure with a cool glowing sword that's like better metal than this one. And it doesn't work like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're just vibing. You're a dude. This is like normal equipment. If you have a sword, like a sword that's made of copper isn't going to stab better than your iron sword. They both just stab. Or like, well, they don't, like, it's not a significant difference. They're both going to stab people. It's all just fine. You need to like...
A pointy thing is a pointy thing.
Yeah. You don't expect like all the treasure you're getting to be like the super cool magic items like an RPG. Everything gets better constantly all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to go through, like, you could go through an entire campaign with base stuff. And, like, that's it. You just have your base stuff. That's what I did with Curse of Strahd. I finished it by killing Strahd with a short bow.
Chris, what about you?
I'm trying to think. I'm not really sure, to be honest.
Yeah, and like you had mentioned earlier, you're not exactly like a super seasoned...
Yeah.
He's the noob.
Yeah, pretty much in this group. I don't know. I'm still kind of trying to find my legs, as it were.
Yeah.
It's funny. I'm actually having trouble thinking of something too, and I've been playing for...
Okay, I'll buy you guys some time. For me, it was probably that your character's actions during the session are going to be what everybody remembers. Nobody cares about the process you made or to make the character or what cool things is going on with your character beforehand unless that's brought to the table in some way, unless you act upon those, characteristics. No one at the table will ever care or know.
Yeah.
And so you have to... it's very common for this to happen, I find, with negative traits for a character. Like, a character would have, like, horrific backstory or whatever. And they've got, they don't trust people. And they play that out at the table. And to all the other players, all that comes across as is, wow, this guy's a dick. So, the adventure starts when the campaign starts, not beforehand.
Yeah.
And it can be really hard for a new player to go, how do I make a character if I don't make any sort of backstory to them, or if I don't make any sort of purpose towards them? They seem kind of aimless. And just make a peasant and give that a go. And play that character until they become a hero. And it'll change your entire perspective on making characters. And then after you've got that perspective, you can come back and you can create your cool, edgy character with a big backstory.
I finally got my thing.
Cool, go for it.
I kind of have to because it's, as a DM, ironically, it's action economy.
Yeah.
If anyone doesn't know what the title action economy means, action economy is a concept in this game that the number of actions taken is power on each side of a fight. So if you have 25 level 1 kobolds, they can kill a dragon. Because each of them takes a turn. 15 turns, and each one of them gets to do something. And then the dragon gets a turn, does its one action. Now the kobolds get to go 15 times again. And,
small enemies or weak enemies can be dangerous in large amounts.
Yeah.
And vice versa, a powerful enemy can be very weak if you've got a lot of players.
Yeah. If you've got a lot of players, you have to up the numbers of the enemies, not the individual enemies. So if you've got like 6 people in your game, up to 8 people, stuff like that, don't pit them all up against one big, super powerful guy, because he's going to get his head chopped off in the first turn.
Yeah.
Or he's going to get grappled by the monk, and then all of the other characters are going to swarm around him and just beat him to death. And he has one turn to try and make anything happen, and the only thing he can do is try and break out of that grapple. And yeah.
I think a good example of that is in like my game. There was this one big, powerful enemy. It was like this big dragon thing, and the players were fighting it. 2 turns, it was down, had to go. Oh my god. They just kicked its shit in immediately. And it was supposed to like regenerate and all this other cool stuff, and it just got its ass handed to it. Then, they, in a different campaign, these same players tried to break into a house that was owned by a noble, and this noble had like a little private army of guards that they gave slightly better armor to. And there was like 7 of them, and they went and to go fight it. And in this particular campaign, we were using brutal criticals and fumbles, which are like extra rules that you can add on. Where if you roll a 1 or a 20, you roll on a table and see how bad that 1 or how awesome that 20 is.
Yeah.
The fighter walked up to one of the guards and attacked. And then it was the guard's turn. The guard looked at him, rolled a natural 20, put his longsword up, rolled on the critical table, and got 100. A natural 100, and cut the fighter's head off.
Yeah, then on top of that, you've got every other guard's turn.
Every other guard's turn. The players are now down 1 player, and
are immediately on the back foot only because there's more guards than there are players. And 1 guard got a huge critical on the players.
Yeah, it was a tough fight. People almost died. They got out of there barely.
Yeah, and depending on who you're playing with, that can be a moment where like all the players get checked on and are like, okay, we gotta be careful from this point on. Or that can play out as all the players feel completely blindsided and are pissed off because these random guards just walked up and murdered them.
To be fair, I was like, look, we can just like not include these rules because I didn't want to just off a single player.
Well, that's you
character.
being a DM and a real person and talked to your players.
Yeah,
and said,
I was like,
hey,
look, this guy's gonna kill you instantly if this like is how we're going to do things. Like we've been doing it like this, but I don't want to. You should never just be like, you're dead now. There is no discussion about it. You're dead.
Yeah.
It's like the player was like, oh yeah, we've been doing this. I get it.
Unless the player is like knowledgeable of the fact that that's going to happen to them.
Yeah.
Like very knowledgeable about it. You can't just say, session 1, hey guys, you might die, and then 25 sessions in, all of a sudden they do something stupid, and you're dead now.
Yeah.
Like.
It's like one of the reasons I am kind of turned away from Tomb of Annihilation.
Yeah.
It's literally just like, you're evil now. What? What do you mean I'm evil now? I don't know, man. You're evil now. You touched the frog in the second room that was bathing in the silk flow. You're evil now.
What do you want from me?
Yeah.
All right,
what
Chris,
do you want from me?
You've had plenty of time now. Can you think of anything?
I guess the only thing I can really think of is I wish that people had basically told me that there are so many different ways you can achieve a certain build you want. Like, you don't necessarily have to go to this class if this is what you want. You could do something else and take this path.
I want to do
basically
sneak attack damage. We have to be a rogue.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
I
didn't really have to be a rogue to do my build for Hath. Yeah. But, I mean, there's a bunch of stuff you could do.
Yeah.
I also have, like, an end question.
Sure.
Just as a fun one. What does everybody here think is the hands-down strongest class in the game?
Do people want me to go first?
Go ahead.
Everyone was quiet.
Don't really.
Go ahead.
I don't have the experience.
Travis, you go
so-
first.
Bard.
Cleric.
My perception is that cleric would be up there, but like I said, I don't have all that.
And then we
much
look down the
experience.
dark, lonely, empty road. What does Jesse think?
No, cleric is extraordinarily powerful. Less so in 5th edition than older editions. And
I can't fucking imagine a point where cleric's more badass.
Yeah, walk
to be
around in
honest.
heavy armor.
let me explain. 2 domains.
Mhm.
Both benefits from both of them,
Oh boy,
right off the bat.
Okay, yeah, hold on. Wait a minute.
that is pretty.
Immediately.
Wow.
Domains did more for you, too.
Oh yeah, the
Oh,
domains
alright.
also you would get more damage if you were using a weapon of that domain. Or is that only paladins?
It was each. No, that was something different. I think in Pathfinder, I don't know what it was in 3.5, but the deities each had a chosen weapon,
Yeah.
a preferred weapon, and you could do that stuff. Yeah, so just as an example here, let me pull up a forest gnome here and make this forest gnome a cleric. So you get to choose a divine domain out of how many do we have? There's Arcana, Death, Forge, Order, Grave, Knowledge, Life, Light, Nature, Peace, Tempest, Trickery, Twilight, and War. Each of these gives you something, as in like a life domain cleric gets they're more effective healing spells. Whenever you use a spell of 1st level or higher to heal, they get additional hit points and stuff like that. Most stuff like that was upgraded in 5th edition. Not for clerics. For clerics, they kept it the same, and they cut in half what you could get because clerics were so powerful in the older stuff. And even now, clerics are very powerful. There used to be a thing in 3.5 where spellcasters, arcane spellcasters, had a spell failure chance. And it was you cast a spell, and if you had arcane spell failure chance, you'd roll a percentile dice, and if it rolled underneath the amount, your spell would fail. This was based on like if you were wearing armor. So if you wore armor, you had an arcane spell failure chance. There were other things that could add to it. Clerics ignore it. Clerics can wear full plate armor,
All right.
steel weapons, and if you were war domain, you also had martial weapons that you could use. You could use a full-on sword and shield and stuff like that.
The reason why I say Bard is the most OP is because Bards have access to the widest variety of spells, the widest variety of equipment, as well as the ability to just passively buff anyone. And also, they're not necessarily the best at any of it, but anyone can roll a 20. Anyone can roll a 1. You are leaving it all into the fate of the dice, whether or not something succeeds. And if you can tip the odds in your favor even a little bit, you become the one-man army of, like, you can do everything.
Yeah.
Now, the thing about bards that makes them, especially in 5th edition, better than clerics in certain ways is it depends on what do you mean by the most powerful, because cleric, by the numbers, tends to be a bit more of a impactful character, but bards, on more than just like one aspect, they're excellent at the social aspect.
Yeah, anything.
If you roleplay heavy, bard wins out every time.
Yeah. But, that's time. We gotta end this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I have one last thing I want to talk about before
Travis
I know
and me
it's
and
past my
you
bedtime.
all had one last thing.
And I wanted to mention this earlier, and this was one thing that I've been experimenting with and been having a lot of fun with myself. if you can find no one, if you cannot start a game of D&D, there is a way that you can use randomly generated stuff to DM for yourself. You make a character, you go on to Donjon, because that's the best one I could come up with, and you start using the random generators to generate situations. And you just, like, oh, I roll for, roll for this, roll for that, make a random town. What do I want to do in this town? Roll the random adventure. What's the issue? Okay, I got an action adventure. Oh, I have to protect endangered NPCs.
But I'm not going to lie, that's really sad.
It is.
I'm a sad person. Joke's on you.
But it is doable if you cannot get people to play. If you've gone like several months of like trying to get people to play and no one can get their schedules lined up, no one can spare the time and stuff like that.
Or you just want to seem like a sociopath.
Or you want to seem like a sociopath. It's
embody fish for free. Do you think Fish plays chess with herself?
Maybe at one point.
Fish is not very smart.
Oh.
So you know how there's
She
this
plays
association
checkers with herself?
She plays tic-tac-toe with herself.
Yeah.
And loses. No.
Oh, fuck. You cheat. Wait.
Yeah.
Let's finish this up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is possible to just use your imagination by yourself.
You can use
pretending to be playing a game with people while you come up with imaginary NPCs to be your party to travel with you.
This is how imaginary friends start.
It's so depressing sounding.
I mean, it sounds fun. I'd do it.
Or you can be like me and be running, be playing, and have run tons of campaigns, be playing a regular game of D&D, be very busy. But then in my spare time, instead of doing something like, watch a show or something, just be like, I want to make characters on D&D Beyond, and then I just start DMing for myself.
It's good. It's good practice for a GM.
It's a slippery slope.
It is a very slippery slope.
It's good practice for a GM who's like trying to build worlds and have things go on in the background.
Yeah. So yeah. That's all.
Have a good night.
Have a good night. That is Action Economy Investment Opportunities.
Yay.
Yeah, we'll have to figure out.
This was a way more chill, relaxed podcast than the first one.
Yeah.